I want to take a moment and thank Tocsin magazine for their hard work in the community. Free press is so important. That's why we decided to have this type of platform today, because we know that our voices are often ignored, silenced, misunderstood in our community. So we wanted to create a platform with some of the people in our community who we believe will help us facilitate this deep conversation concerning the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And we want to let you know that Save Rochester and Tocsin magazine have identified these candidates to share their thoughts, their experiences about a wealth of issues in our community that greatly impact people of color and our community at large. I just want to go over a couple of norms for you all, tell you a little bit about who I am, and then I'll pass it over to Shanique, and then we can get started with our first topic, which is bail reform. Okay. We want to respect all speakers. Okay, starting off. Hello, Nikki. Just saw Nikki in the room as well. Moses, thank you for coming. So we shouldn't have to tell you guys that, but no name calling or no personal attacks. Okay, don't say you are this, you are that. We want to stay away from that. I want you to expect non-closure. Okay, none of our conversations here today are going to lead to an immediate solution, in my opinion. It is just a way for us to, again, in the spirit of, I saw Howard Ego in here. Howard, I'm acknowledging you, brother, and paying homage to, the first step is to organize, and I agree with there. We want to be kind and courteous to one another. Do not try to dominate the conversation, and we want you to share the space with others. We wanted to begin right away. My name is Mike Johnson, and I will be moderating this Zoom meeting. I'm here with Save Rochester, which is a nonprofit organization in Rochester dealing with anti-poverty initiatives. We just secured our first grant back with federal funds to be able to do some workshops with youth, at-risk youth. So that is what we do. If you have questions about that, please reach out to us at saverochester.org. We will have a copy of this broadcast here for you today, available on saverochester.org. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Shanique Bird so we can go ahead and get this conversation started in honor of Dr. King.
Thank you, Mikey. So first we want to say on January 15th, 1929, a king was born. His contribution to the world would deliver a movement so powerful decades after his assassination, we still celebrate his life. He was born into a world of injustice and defined by skin color, but destined for greatness. A king so brave that many feared him but couldn't control him. A king so impactful that they tried to silence him. A king so resilient that his death only made him stronger. Dr. Martin Luther King, we salute you for sacrificing your life for people like me, others on the panel, and beyond, to be brave enough to stand in truth, regardless of the consequences. We should look at your strength and understand our mission is to create a better community. We cannot remain silent on issues that continue to devastate our family, friends, and neighbors. That is why we are here today to hold a community discussion. Tocsin Magazine and Save Rochester would like to thank everyone on our panel for adding your voices to such an important conversation. Mikey?
Thank you, Shanique. So very well spoken and in honor of Dr. King and his legacy. And I just want to remind everybody that Dr. King, went to college at 15 years old. Look at some of what our teens are doing today. We can't make any excuses. We have the potential to do that. And I think that onus is on us, right? We need to find those other Dr. Kings that are out there, because the man was really, really a genius. 67 years since the Montgomery bus boycott, right? Here we are today. I'd like us to remember a salient theme. What would Dr. King say about some of these things as we have these conversations? Dr. King says, there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe nor politic nor popular. but he must take it because conscience tells him it is right. Okay, so let's remember that as we're having this conversation here today. Okay, my first question here is Marcus in the room, Marcus and Rich. If you guys want to chime in here, I know you guys have differing views on this question, but we're going to talk about what would Dr. King say about bail reform and excessive bail. Low income in communities of color, Black and Latinos being disproportionately, it seems, impacted by bail. Is bail reform working for or against our community?
I don't know if you had an order of who to go first. If Marcus wanted to go first, can everybody hear me?
You're a little low, but if you speak up a little bit, I think that would help.
Well, there's no order. I think Dr. Martin Luther King would have agreed for bail reform. In the state that it's in now, or what is being portrayed on the news now with bail reform, because they keep on depicting that we are allowing some people that are in the system that are not doing the right thing after they get out, but it's being portrayed on the news. There's no, I'm sure there is a story out there that shows that somebody has benefited from bail reform to be out and to continue to help their family or help themselves. But what is portrayed on the news is just somebody getting out and then causing more havoc, which puts people in the mind state of, is bail reform need to be changed or is it needed? Which is the question now, which is disappointing to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the way that bail reform is portrayed on the media is definitely an issue. Marcus. Marcus, are you here?
To go back off of what was just asked about the bail reform, hopefully you guys can still hear me. Just give me a thumbs up or something. So as far as the bail reform goes, there have been many different issues with bail reform. A large part of bail reform that everybody likes is that people that seem to be disadvantaged or disserviced and generally forgotten, many people from communities that tend to be less affluent or have less money, they actually don't have to post bail for most crimes now. However, this is being applied completely across the board for all types of crimes, including violent sexual crimes, assaults. It's even being applied for people who are out here carjacking people and who are doing all types of other crimes that would consider completely unacceptable. Not that any crime is unacceptable, but you get the idea. Is bail reform something that was needed? I think that bail reform, in a different sense, could possibly be extremely impactful. But in the way that it's being applied right now across all types of ways, and it's not even just bail reform, it's all of the compassionate release programs at this time. Less is more, the change in the discovery rules and laws, where, like, if you are a victim of a crime, the criminal, if it happened at your house, the criminal can come to your house, see everything where you live, scope out your place and everything. It's also well documented that the majority of these crimes right now that are going on and people that are being actually caught are people who are reoffenders. And they're mostly reoffenders who are recently re-released. Many of people who are out on, parole, or who are out on appearance tickets.
Yeah, that's interesting that you bring that up, Marcus, because you obviously disagree with Rich, right? And Rich, I want you to be able to respond, right, to that point that Marcus brings up. What about these repeat offenders, right? What is big? I mean, there's the issue of bail reform and the fact that, in the 19th century, as a matter of fact, this is a perfect time to show the history on that video. If you guys would just mind 30 seconds of brief education here. If you can give me a thumbs up, if you can see that screen. Awesome.
This has led to the rise of commercial bail bond companies. They pay a defendant's bail in exchange for a hefty fee the company keeps. Today, the median bail is $10,000, a prohibitively high price for almost half of Americans and as many as 9 out of 10 defendants. If the defendant can't pay, they may apply for a loan from a commercial bail bond company. It's completely up to the company to decide whose bail they'll pay. They choose defendants they think will pay them back, turning a profit of about $2 billion each year.
Okay, I just want everybody to realize what we're talking about here, and that jailing Black and Latino people is big business. In fact, to the tune of $2 billion industry. So, Rich, can you please respond to Marcus's point about these repeat offenders? What do you think? What do you make of that?
Okay, that was my point earlier. To say the I don't know. It looks like, to me, it looks almost like fear mongering from the news. To keep on talking about these repeat offenders, these violent repeat offenders. It is across the board. I don't deny what Marcus said, but what I always been in favor for is reforming the reform bill, which is when the bill was passed, and we see now there is not a program to put these women and men in to add on the forgiveness of the bail, which would be a good idea to add on to this reform to redirect or to guide them into something else, or to guide them, away from what they normally do. Because let's be honest, the bail reform was needed for our communities, because a lot of the people that are getting arrested, although they might be doing certain crimes, and certain crimes might have been thought of in the bail reform instead of going across the board, it was needed. And some people, because the court system is innocent till proven guilty. It's not guilty till proven innocence.
I love the fact that you just brought that up, because the purpose of bail was that a defendant was presumed to be innocent until proven guilty, and then they would pay a fine. They would pay the bail. They would be released, and whether they were found innocent or guilty, they were given that money back. But what happened was, with incredibly heinous crimes, it became up to the judges. It was up to the judge's discretion to define what was heinous, who's dangerous, who's a threat, who's not. And see, that is the issue that I believe that we need to be talking about. These judges who we elect to the bench, who ultimately are letting their biases, right, and their prejudices impact the judicial system. And now we have this whole conflict with bail reform. Why should we expand or abolish the bail reform? I'm going to ask Marcus and Richard that question. Should we expand bail reform or abolish the program? And then we're going to move on to our new mayor and what he might be able to do about some of the issues around that.
Okay, so to touch on that real quick, if you're a violent offender, especially if you're a repeat offender, you need to be held until your trial. People are out here running around crazy because they don't feel as though, one, there's not enough police officers on the street. That's number one. But number two, they feel as though there are no real repercussions. And it's even encouraging people that normally, under normal circumstances, would be more upstanding citizens and wouldn't participate in this activity, because they see, oh, well, they can get away with it, I can too. And while bail reform is a nice sentiment, like Rich actually said, there are like almost no resources to actually I wouldn't even say reintegrate, but to help people that may be more likely to commit crime because of the way of life that they've been exposed to, and the background that they come from. If you're asking me, do I think they should get rid of bail reform? I would say that it needs to be reassessed and implemented in a different way, but that goes straight across the board for almost all of these compassionate and early release programs. They need resources. If they can't have resources, and if you can't also have follow-ups, because we are in an extreme shortage of, what do you call them? Oh my goodness, probation officers right now. So they can't even follow up with people that are on probation. And that's a whole nother separate issue as well.
Let's Be Lead Safe with May Development is a certified firm dedicated to reviewing lead hazards in your home to avoid the health risks associated with lead poisoning. To ensure you have a safe environment for you and your children, have your home tested by a licensed and professional lead testing company to determine if you have any hazards. Contact us today at 585-503-3559 or visit us at letsbeleadsafe.net.
I slightly disagree with you, Marcus, and I think that it's not about catering to the small population of repeat offenders, but we got to move on. We can come back to that at the end of the conversation, and anyone who is in the room, it will be allowed to weigh in on that. I want to shift gears just a little bit here. We have Officer Moses Robinson in the room. He is one of our guests. I want to have him introduce himself and tell those of you who don't know Moses, tell us a little bit about what your take is on bail reform, because I want to pick your brain about some challenges that you face.
Well, number one, peace and blessings to everyone here. I pray that everyone has a peaceful new year. I pray strongly that we are able to work together to bring about, systemic change in so many areas. So I definitely want to say peace and blessings to everyone. I think initially the question was, how did Martin Luther King feel about the situation with bail reform? And I don't really think that question from the perspective or from the mind of this great leader, and I cannot get into his mind. I can't, I would only surmise based on the studies and the written materials of Martin Luther King, the letter from the Selma jail, and things of that nature, some of the writings and his speeches. We have to incorporate those kinds of ideas of character building around, because you got to remember, Martin Luther King was a spiritual leader. So from a spiritual mind, he is reshaping, reforming, and the minds of a world. And so, if I think it's true to form, if from the studies and research of Martin Luther King, from his perspective, which was the question initially about bail reform, it wasn't so much just about bail reform; it was more about character development. And what character development looked like in terms of all aspects of change. So in the reality of what I believe, honestly, as a spiritual leader, as Martin Luther King was, we cannot escape the fact, and we do a great disservice by not speaking from his perspective in terms of looking at institutional, systematic, and change from that perspective. If bail reform falls into that, then of course it's one of those things that as a community, not just a small group of individuals, politicians, or anything else that, or even from the police department's perspective, it's about us all talking in a room about a thing that's universal called cause and effect. If we do this, what will be the effects on poor people? If we do this, what will be the effects on the Black and Hispanic and poor people community? So it's not so much just, I believe looking at, what police officers think or what other people are thinking. Those things are important. But I also think that if we're going to talk about, how the great leader, Martin Luther King, and other leaders looked at, the institutional changes that needed to take place because of systemic racism and those issues, then I think we should try to immerse ourselves in a mindset as much as we possibly can on what Martin Luther King would have thought about not
Absolutely.
just the behavior, but the character shaping the behavior as well.
Absolutely, Moses. I knew you would do that question justice. The only thing you missed the mark on is telling everybody the wealth of experience. And, he's a very seasoned police officer, community engagement officer. And you're absolutely right. And I think that Dr. King would be for, not only would he be for bail reform, but I think he would take it that initial step that I discussed. We were talking about looking at the character of the people who are making these decisions that impact so many lives. Okay. So Martin Luther King would not be like, abolish the system. Would he go that far? I'm not thinking that he would be more leaning towards the side of reforming the hearts and the minds of those who sit on the bench. And that's the character piece that I love the fact that you referenced. Now, speaking of character pieces, right? I do not know the mayor very well. Okay. I know his sister, Lashara Evans, who is officially a board member of Save Rochester as of yesterday. But any of the people on our panel, can you give us some insight into the unique challenges? Is the mayor a supporter of some of these systemic challenges and institutional problems that we're discussing? How can the community support this new administration if he is? Can anyone weigh in on that?
I'll chime in. Not knowing professionally about what Lee Gavin is planning to do yet. He just got in office, but I hope that he's open for meetings. There's a lot of organizations that do work in the community here in Rochester, and I hope he's open to listen and give an ear, and not just give an ear, but to act on some of the good ideas that come from our organization here in Rochester that help the community more than a little bit. But it is going to be challenging. It already has shown us over the past year, crime-wise, and there are other challenges than just crime. You don't want to concentrate on just crime. There are other challenges, and I do think that he has a full plate coming into office.
Anyone else want to chime in there? Because I got to tell you, with any transition from power, there's going to be challenges. In fact, we have something that I don't want to go too deep into because I don't know how comfortable Moses is with sharing the details behind this. But I think this is a great opportunity, and we were talking about Dr. King and his legacy, to expose some of the things that make us uncomfortable and face those head on. So I want to share with you all my screen here. Okay. And if you can all see my screen, give me a thumbs up if you can see that, please. See a couple. Rich, can you see that? Okay, great. Okay. So it says, it has come to our attention that Officer Moses Robinson has been removed from his position within the command staff at the RPD, as well as his role as community engagement liaison within the RPD. So is that? I'm trying to. So you build a strong relationship. Our fear is that the community is being set back. And then the first comment here, nice picture of Moses there, by the way. And a nice comment is, that is how RPD rolls. So in thinking about all Moses does for the community, right? Thinking about a Black man who relates to so many different organizations in the community, is on call, at the drop of the dime, he's there. What would Martin Luther King say about, this new, Black mayor, let's just, say it with his new Black mayor coming into office, a transition of power, and then, a Black man like Moses being what seems to be ousted from his position. Now, I got to give you guys an update on that. Moses has confirmed that was true, but I do have to share the other portion of that with you all, because the community came out and showed love, showed support, and then the Bajara Katka says, I want to thank the community for speaking out on behalf of Officer Robinson. Shortly after being removed, Officer Robinson was reinstated. Okay, how do we reconcile these types of relationships in the community? Between people who have different interests in the community, but we all kind of believe in the work that Martin Luther King is doing. Moses, can you speak to any of that? Because I know people we're concerned about you.
You hear me? I'm sorry. Can you hear me, sir? Good. Thank you. Number one, I need to give honor and praise to the Creator. I seek refuge in His protection. I seek refuge in that this is never about me. It's about even in, with like Martin Luther King, not that I see myself as a Martin Luther King, but I see the work that we're all doing. And I say we are all doing together in the community is to enlighten and to save our community, such as we say, save Rochester. So at this point for me, when that happened, I was taken back by it. And I try to be dutiful to the Creator that, if this is his blessing, or if this is his test for me, then allow me to go through it, praising him. And I say this on a spiritual level, because we have to remember that if we talk about Martin Luther King at such a time as this, we have to remember these tests that we go through are spiritual tests. And not only just for me, but it's a spiritual test for all of those that are witnessing and watching what's happening. And so for me, and I always believe God will test me with, something that Mikey may go through, or something that Rich may go through, or something that, retired Captain Lewis will go through. And so for me, I go to the Creator to ask, what is this? What does this mean? So I just want to say it's never about me. It's not even about Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or all these other people. It's about the work that needs to be completed and the work that needs to be done. And the support that you give these individuals, for the most part, not because it's the individuals, because it's what they represent. So for me, being silent in that category, trying to be obedient, I allowed it to go where it went, and for a period of time, and the results were in my favor. So I appreciate Ms. Bird and the rest of you guys reaching out to me, but I wanted to make sure that I was dutiful and seek the right type of answers to the questions that may come my way, and allow this position to correct itself, or the ship to correct itself before anything went any further. And that was it. But like I said, this is that time of our lives in our city where the mayor needs the support, and he needs the proper support. Moses, Save Rochester, and different organizations. We have a new president, a president of our board here at the Ennoble, which is a national organization of Black law enforcement executives. President, Madam President Lewis. She's also stepped in to talk to Malik and help to redefine or reform the downfalls of law enforcement. And I say that respectfully, because I think that she comes in and she has tremendous answers and solutions to how we can be better in law enforcement. And she needs that support from the community. She needs that support from police departments and things of that nature.
Absolutely. So we'll be looking out, and definitely. I saw a hand in the audience, and I just want to make sure we get its full participation. If you do have a question, Uncle John, Dr. John Sharp, I'm sure you have a question. Weigh in when you can. So Tamaya, I asked Tamaya, I saw your hand first, and then we'll go to Carolyn, and before we move on to the next topic.
Yes, hi. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tamaya, and I just wanted to say, as everyone move forward, that the important thing is not about the people who do wrong. It's actually about the people who can change it, who could actually do something. So it's important that as we grow as a community, that we get people who are willing to do the right thing, no matter what type of pressure that they're under, and to have integrity, because it's important, because a lot of things that's going on, it can be changed, but the people in power are afraid to.
Facts.
Absolutely. 100%.
And we have to know that we are, just like, y'all said about King, he was a warrior, prayer warrior. He was sent from God to begin to lead this. So we have to look at that. Prayer is important. He will guide us and show us the things that we need to do. He will bring the people together so that we can get this right. We have to look to him for his guidance, though.
Thank you for that, Tamaya. Any of our panelists, special guests, want to respond to Tamaya's comment?
She's 100% right on point. Right now, with a lot of politicians, we see a large amount of weakness and their reluctance to speak on certain issues, and they just kind of go along with people who are higher up on the food chain instead of actually standing up and saying, hey, this is important, we need to address this, or maybe we should rethink this direction that we're going in. Unfortunately, we do have a lot of leaders right now who are either too afraid or too in somebody's pocket to say anything.
Thank you for that, Marcus. Moving on to Carolyn. Carolyn, we definitely want to give you a chance to share your comments, concerns, or if you have a question.
Good afternoon, everyone. First, I do thank the Creator for allowing me to be here. Happy New Year. And hello to everyone, Rochester. I'm just going to give a brief bio of me, basically. I'm Carolyn Lewis. As Moses said, I'm the president of the Western New York chapter of Noble, but I'm also a retired captain in New York City Department of Correction. And I do want to comment on the bail reform. As someone that worked Rikers Island and worked city jails, I don't think it's a bad thing, but it has to be reevaluated, and they have to really look at what they're doing, because in the city, when I was working, they were releasing just anybody. And that's where the problem comes, when media looks at the bad, it got the bad publicity. They were just letting anyone out. And then you have those that were coming out and committing crimes again. So, but I think that there has to be some plan in place that when these people are released, that the community or the agencies provide services to allow them to go in and get some kind of guidance or support that they would need to keep them from I'll have a bad time saying recidivism, but that's what I mean. But they need to focus on one, family, because family has to be involved with these people coming in, young and old. Family has to be involved, and there have to be a program out there that will allow them, in my personal opinion, to focus on doing something other than, you going back out and the first thing you want to do is go rob a gas station again. You just got arrested for that. You were released, and now you're going back to do the same thing. So, that's how I feel about bail reform. And I just want to say one thing as far as Martin Luther King. One of my favorite quotes from Martin Luther King is, "We need leaders not in love with money, but in love with justice. Not in love with publicity, but in love with humanity." Okay, we need that. And I hope that this mayor, Rochester, he will come in and do what needs to be done. We need to have we need to recruit people within RPD, the state troopers, that look like us, that know what it is to go through things, that deal with what's going on in the community. Moses is one of the best people that I know that's out there in the community. Everyone knows him.
Absolutely, which is what
he does. But and then the last thing that I would just like to say is, Noble, we have a program called Law in Your Community, and this program allows the community and the police to interact with each other. And I'm actually working to put that in place. I'm not sure if we can do it in person because of COVID, but we are working to bring that program up here because it will allow police and community to come together. They sit down, they have scenarios. They are, the community is told, given recommendations what to do if they come into any contact with law enforcement. And I personally believe that it goes both ways because sometimes you get a hothead officer that needs to be calmed down a little bit. But when the community knows their rights, that they know that Fourth Amendment right or other rights, then things can go a little bit easier. And I just thank you for allowing me to speak.
Absolutely. And you said so much. And one of the things that resonated with me was that that piece you said from Dr. King. We need people who are in love with humanity, right? And it seems to be the trajectory that this country is going, that more people are accepting that. We just saw, and just to shift gears a little bit from leadership, and still kind of stay in that vein, Black Lives Matter and issues, because I see Anthony Hall in here, and I know he's one of the leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement. In fact, I know that because we, marched right next to each other in the streets of Rochester, New York, after the death of Daniel Prude and George Floyd. So I want him to speak on one of the most recent tragedies and from Fayetteville, North Carolina, in the spirit of Dr. King, and saying, Anthony, what would Dr. King do when time after time we've seen these Black men murdered in the street? And before you weigh in, Anthony, I'd just like to share with everyone a brief clip so that they can know exactly what I'm talking about when I'm saying that I'm talking about this new recent killing. So I'd just like to share with that. It will not be very long.
Jason Walker. Now, the events leading up to that shooting are still being disputed. Police say the victim, quote, ran into traffic and jumped on a moving vehicle. That car's driver then shot that man. BNC's Janine Donaldson has more.
Hey, 911, what's that? Just an emergency. Yes, sir, it's an emergency. I'm on Shenandoah and Bigham's Drive. I had a male jump on my vehicle and break my windshield. I just shot him.
This is the 911 call made by Cumberland County Sheriff's Deputy Jeffrey Hash after he shot 37-year-old Jason Walker Saturday. During the call, Elizabeth Ricks, a nurse who rendered aid to Walker at the scene, can be heard asking Hash where he shot Walker. Ricks disputes the deputy's claim that Walker jumped on his truck and says Walker was just crossing the street when the deputy hit him and shot him.
Okay, so I want everyone, I'm not going to demand, right, that, you say his name, but that's what I want to do. I want to ask you, in the spirit of Dr. King, to remember Jason Walker, because they're saying that this man ran across the street and jumped on somebody's truck. If the truck was huge, Ford cab truck, pickup truck, and they're saying he ran into the truck and this man just hopped out of his vehicle and shot him dead. And so we need to remember who we need to remember who Jason Walker is. I'm just going to ask Anthony Hall, period. Where are the droves of people who protested against police brutality, a couple summers ago? Where are those people, and should we be trusting those people?
Are you tired of mainstream media's distortion of the truth, cover-ups, and bias? We've allowed outsiders to tell the stories of the community for far too long. Now the Community Reporters puts the news back in the hands of the people. Our goal is to work directly with residents to tell a clear and honest story that mainstream media typically tries to hide. No more hidden agendas or business as usual. Join the Community Reporters today.
Hey, how you doing, Mike?
Good. How you doing, bro?
Good. I appreciate the platform. I appreciate everyone for being on. Happy New Year's. Well, first, I'm not I don't consider myself as a leader of Black Lives Matter movement. I'm just a person who fills in the gaps. As it relates to the incident in Fayetteville, I really can't speak too much to it, but what I will say is that what we see across our nation and in our community time and time again is the ill-equipped excuses of individuals, whether or not they did something wrong or right, but just not taking accountability. We don't know what happened. The gentleman that shot Mr. Walker stated that he jumped on his car. In our minds, well, in my mind, that's kind of hard to believe. But as things unfold, I guarantee we will see what really took place. What I will say, as relates to your question about folks coming out in masses to protest, there is such thing called passion fatigue, and I believe that a lot of folks within the last 2 years have been overwhelmed with what took place or what's taking place in our country. We can march. There's many remnants as it relates to the movement and the struggle. Marching and protesting is one aspect of it. A lot of us are still engaged in writing legislation, being a part of that process and being a part of changing laws and codes and ordinances across the nation, and then having these type of discussions. I think in the spirit of King, doing sit-ins and marching and protesting and boycotting, those things are necessary. But as we move forward into the start of 2022, Black folks have to transcend boycotting, marching, protesting. We have to be deliberate in being strategic around policies, ordinances, codes, legislation, and laws, and being a part of that process. We have to be deliberate in seeking qualified, authentic, transparent, elected and civil leaders in our community to represent us and be holistic on the approach of what we need in our community. Particularly in Rochester, we're still fragmented within our own rank and file, and we see it. We see it day in and day out. Particularly during the election season, the lowest turnout in voting in Rochester history was this past election season. So we understand that there is something going on in our community, and I'm listening in, and what we failed to do in our own personal spaces, and as we work in community, is take responsibility. We forget that this struggle is not personal to one individual. This struggle is for everyone, particularly that look like you and I, and those that came before us, who have passed, who became martyrs, who still are living. That we stand on their shoulders to fight to actually change the trajectory of what started this, and understanding that the crux and the bedrock of all our issues in this country is racism. And until we are able, because racism could be removed within 2 generations, because it's a mindset. And if we're not willing to dive deep and hold folks accountable, whether they look like us or not, we'll keep dancing to the same song.
I think Howard is at his hand raised next.
Okay, Howard.
Yes, was Anthony done? I think he was finishing a point. I don't know if he finished.
Well, just for the time, because we initially only asked people to be here for
Okay.
an hour.
Okay, let me respond. Anthony says so much. There's so much to respond to. We could have another 2 or 3 hour meeting just on what he said. But let me respond to a couple of critical points. It was interesting when you mentioned that he was a leader of the Black Lives Matter movement, and he said, "No, I'm not. That's not who I am." That's an interesting comment. But in the context of Dr. King's activities in his life, and Fayetteville and many other incidents such as that, it's important for us to understand some things that I believe we're confusing, right? So Dr. King's boycotting and marching and protesting, and those are tactics. Those are tactics. We need to understand that's not a movement. Many of us think that that's what movement is. No, those are tactics that are used in the process of building a movement. And there are strategies that are used. And this is a very important if we're going to be critical, if we're going to be effective in terms of really impacting critical issues in our community in concrete, measurable ways. And so I love Brother Anthony and his critiques. I have a slight disagreement with him around we have to transcend that. I don't think we have to transcend it, but I think we have to learn how to use it more strategically in the process of building movement. And again, to know the difference. Movement really is, in essence, a critical mass of people who are working constantly, consistently around agreed upon, measurable, concrete goals. And that's what Dr. King was doing. We're going to break down segregation. We're going to ride on the bus. We're going to sit at the lunch counter. Those are goals. The marching, the protesting, the boycotting, those are tactics. The overall strategy was to build a nonviolent movement. And I think that those things are just so important for us to understand the difference. And Anthony ended his comments by saying that the critical foundational issue, and many people don't want to talk about this, in all of this for our people is absolutely individual, institutional, and structural racism. And we got to talk about it. We got to know how it works, how it functions. We can't talk about it in abstraction. We got to know exactly what we're talking about, or else we won't know what we're trying to change, which is the laws, policies, practices, procedures, rules, regulations that continue to keep the oppression on us. So I'm done, but there's so much more to say.
No. I love the fact that you clarified that you clarified those things for us about, rules, the goals, the tactics, and then the movement. I think that was a pretty nice distinction. I don't think anyone disagrees with that. And Anthony, did you want to clarify that? Because I don't think you disagree with that.
No, he's spot on.